Hello everybody, welcome on this new episode of Terebia. And now I will talk to you about the principal regions you can find in Terebia. So here you have a list of the great families. So you have the Velebist region, the solar cults, the shamanic regions, the cyclical regions, the necromantic cults, and two other regions, the Quidra Clocon and the Dukur Anagai. I will start with the Velebist regions. They all believe in one god. Generally, he is considered as the creator of everything, and those regions are based on redemption. The idea is that the humanity did something wrong by the past and need to find redemption. But it takes different way depending of the different regions. So the first are the more recent, the Puritans, or the Great Temple. It's the same thing in fact. And the believers are called Puritans. That region includes a lot of restriction because for them the redemption need a purity of the soul and of the body. They believe in a stern god, and so for them they need to purify the world from heretics. For example, it can be by exclusion or sometimes by violence. It's considered as a very intolerant religion, in fact, and for them, the redemption will arrive by a great war between all the cults, all the religions, and it will lead to the victory of Velebi and the redemption of humanity. Then the shepherds, sometimes also called Velebists, because yes, for a lot of other regions, the Puritans are corrupted the message of Velebi, and it's why the shepherds are called Velebists. For them, the redemption need forgiveness and compassion. The idea is the necessity to purify the world from hate and violence, to found an eternal peace, in fact, and then to ascend to Velebi. They trust in a merciful God, but they also trust that humanity and all intelligent creatures are free, and so Velebi can't directly help them. The redemption needs to be something executed by the believers. And finally, they considered all, not all, but a lot of different regions as languages Velebi used, and it's why they generally try to have a dialogue with the other regions. And finally, a new one, the Arvlidir. So it's the more ancient region about Velebi. It's called, the believers are called the Arvlidians. They are very close from the shepherds, but they trust in they also trust in the need to purify his soul by restriction. Then you have the solar cult. whose cults derived from ancient polytheistic regions, and the ancient gods were assimilated were assimilated by sun and moon. And so, of course, they deify the sun and the moon. So generally, the sun represents strength, justice, war also. In fact, the two, the sun and the moon, have understand bad and good things, and for the moon, it will more be fertility, seduction, agriculture, peace, something like that. And they are linked with witchcraft. And as you can see, there is only a little number of believers. The first one is the Vium Noce, or Vium Noce. The believers are called Viumists. They trust in sun and moon as gods, as I said, and it's linked with witchcraft. It's the principal religion in Slavza, and it's in reality more a religion dedicated to witches and wizards. Then you have the Nixonense. They trust in sun and moon, of course, but also in seas. For them, seas represent life, and in fact, the sea represents the cycle of life, and the sun represents more the male, and the moon more the female. And it includes witches and wizards, but more as a priest. It's not only for witches and wizards. And finally, the Pakinkastorim, so Pakinkans for the believers. They personify moon and sun in the body of two babies, one boy and one girl, and who will during all their life represent moon and sun, and are supposed to read the signal from sun and moon to lead the community. It's also linked with witchcraft because generally the babies are have for mothers a witch, and sometimes a wizard for father also. Then the shamanic religions. They trust in the presence of spirits. They are linked with natural elements, so I used a natural here, even if for a lot of those religions, the concept of nature does not make sense, in fact. So here you have the first number, so 55 million of people who trust in it, plus 30 million. In fact, it's because you have a lot of different shamanic regions. I just represent here the four biggest. So the first, which is also the first region I could found in the archives, it's the Olkin. So the believers are called the Olkists. In ancient language, it's significate mother, because they believe in mother goddess. who is the mother of everything, and everything for them have a spirit. So mountains, rivers, but also animals, sky, stars, insects, also. And all the spirits are supposed to be equal with the same ability to think and to have consciousness. It's why for them nature does not exist, because nature supposed separation between humans or intelligent creature and the the rest of the world. But for them there is no separation. In fact, when a believer die, or when something die, it returns to the mother goddess, rebirth by her, and live another life in another body. After that, then we have the Yemei Phanistigi, also called Yemeists. For them, there is no mother goddess, but there is a hierarchy of spirits. In first, you will have big elements, like for example seas, oceans, sky, sun, moon, mountains, so very big things. Under them, you will have dragons, some whales, in fact, very big animals, and also wind, and finally humans with animals like lions, birds, eagle, something like that, and under them insects. And it's they need they give a lot of respect from uh, the hierarchy of the spirits. And yes, also, if they die, they can, as uh, the first region, they will find another body, but at the same level of the hierarchy. For example, a mountain can't become a human. It's impossible. A mountain can become an ocean, for example. And it's possible to communicate with the spirits for to ask favors, for example, or benediction or malediction. Then the mental, so mountains for the believers, they trust in the eternal planes, and they think that spirits are linked to things. The two previous regions thinks that everything have spirits in itself. Them they trust that everything is linked with spirits. For example, for humans, the spirit is the soul, in fact, of these people, but for oceans or mountains, it will be more guardians of the elements. And they especially respect three spirits. So the spirits of the plains, of the wind, and of the sky. And finally, the last one, the Ewium, so Ewists for the believers. Then they believe in a mirror world. So each thing which exists in one world have a reflect in the mirror world. And it's possible to talk with the spirits of the mirror world to have information on elements of your own world. But it's impossible to communicate with the spirits of your own world, in fact. And for them, when they die, they will birth in the mirror world, and when they will die in the mirror world, they will birth in uh, the common world, in fact. Then finally, the sacred religions. Then they believe in a cycle of reincarnations of the soul, and they have a strong link with meditations. The idea is that at each life, the soul will have will be corrupted or purified by the way of life of the people. And when it became very pure, it can ascend not as a god but as a mystical things. And if they became too corrupted, they became not a demon, but yes, the best translation could be a demon. The first is Ansikhodvata and Dvatans for the believers. They trust in a cycle of reincarnations, but for them, it's one exception. If your soul is very corrupted, you will not become a monster. So it can only end with the awakening. They represent the awakening as a door, and when a soul is pure, the door opens to another world with a better level of consciousness. And in all world, you need to purify your souls. And if you are too corrupted, you can return to the ancient world and to finally be a saint, something like a saint, in fact. When the Waneng Mapin, so Mapists, then they trust in a balance of forces between good and bad things. They also trust in guiding gods, so gods who show the way. And depending of the choices you made during your life, you can be accepted by a god or rejected by another god. And when a god chose you, you ascend, and the soul ascent and became a servitor of the god. And there is also a very big diversity of different creatures linked to each god. And for them, you can also be chosen by a demon if you are too corrupted. Finally, no, not finally. Then the Tardaim. Them they trust in the global reincarnations. For them, the souls which achieve their transformation are blocked on the surface of Earth until all the souls became pure or became impure. At this moment, it will be a big war between good and bad souls, and the world will and because of that, the world uh, will be under the light or the darkness for eternity. And because of that, they have a cult of purity. In fact, they could be linked to the Puritans because of that. And finally, the Jaraja, so Jarajans for the believers, they believe in the calming of the souls. They are very close to the shepherds by their idea of the world. For them, in fact, when a soul became pure, it will ascend, but as a difference of the other religions, an impure soul is not lost. An impure soul can be saved by a redemption, or but if you pray, if you pray for the redemption, they can have redemptions. Then the necromantic cults, for them, the lich. So I will do, I think, history of Terebia about the lich. They considered their lich as gods. So a lich is a necromancer. The definition can change between the different necromancers groups, but generally it's a very powerful necromancer who reach immortality by one way or another. The first one is the Enamata necromancers, so Enamatans. For them, liches are linked to the unseen world. The unseen world could be translated by world of death, because their liches are undead. And so they are linked to the world of the dead and to the common world. So they are material gods, and so they have more legitimacy than the other gods. And they also do a lot of sacrifice to keep their liches alive. And generally, they make the sacrifices with members of other religions. Then the necromancers of the trenches maintains, called the plaguists, they have only one lich, and the lich is their only god. And it's not very clear. We don't have a lot of information about that cult, but the only thing we know is that submission is very, very important. They need a total submission to the god, or the lich, of course. Then I will end with two religions. We were probably linked to bigger families, but those families disappears and only remains those two regions. The first is the Kidraklokan. It's an elven region, so very appreciated by the elves, and especially in the Udafos. You can have a look about the Bestiary of Terebia about the elves if you want. And they trust in a cycle of destruction and reconstruction. And for them, give cult to Kidra. So Kidra is the snake we have on the picture, and Klokken is a cycle in the Elven language. Um, so give be in the region about Kidra will allow you to not be distracted in the cycle and to stay as you were uh, through all the different eras. It's generally also used by the Iridafos to justify their hate of the humans and the other intelligent species, because for them only the elves are have the legitimacy to be under the protection of Kidra. Because a lot of them consider their people are the most ancient and pure people on Terebia. Then finally, the Dukur and Nagai. So the believers are called Dukists. Then they trust in a primal duality, and the duality need to be respected to preserve the world. And they also need for gathering to have each part in the same quantity. I will give you an example, a concrete example. For them, if women can give birth, so can give life, men need to give death, and so need to be warriors. It's an example. And another one, if a fire is warm, you need to make it in duality with a cold period. So generally, in summer, you will not use fire for the region. Light, for example, from torches need to be used in the dark, so you not use light during the day. It's all the other things you need to gather the duality every time, and they trust in Dukur, and Dukur is the god which is at the same time all the duality. So he is a man, woman, cold, warm, light and dark at the same time. So here you have the different proportions, and here by great families. Then I will talk about the relation between the different regions by this picture. So you have the region which are intolerant with the others, tolerant. So tolerant is the region which accept the existence of other regions, but which will not talk with them. And when conversing is the region who trusts in the necessity to have a conversation with the other regions. Then after you have the not including regions. It is the region who does not include any part of other regions. Including is the regions who include sometimes concepts, notions, or fasts from other regions. And finally, adaptative are it's for the region will, for example, try to adapt some of their notions uh, depending of the situation. For example, they will be able to use concepts of a region to explain their own concepts. And if it makes sense to mix the two concepts. And so here we have the different proportion. As you can see, a lot of regions are pretty tolerant, but you have also a lot of intolerant region, also in Terebia. Then for the end, I will make a little chronology of the different regions. So you have on your right the period and the map in the middle. So the first regions I found in the archive was the Elkin in the northwest and the middle of Terebia. Then the Ansi Kodvata in the south east and the mountains of the southeast. After the Yemei Fanistigi in the southwest, the Kid Rock Crocon, I found the first mention from the eastern Udefos, and with the time it reached all the other Udefos. Then the Yumnotse around Savza, the Ewium region, so in the north of Terebia, the Jaraja after in all the extreme east, the Ardir region around the Gold Bay, the Nixo Nantse. So I think I looked to the archives, and I think that it's Yumnotse which derives in the east and changed in the travel. Then the Duku Anakai in the islands, the Wonen Apin in the north east of Terebia, then the Shepherd, so in the west, more in the west of Terebia, the Montal in the plains of the east, finally the last solar cult, so the Pakin Castorim in the archive. I'm not sure, because it can be it's possible that it be a transformation of the two previous solar cults. I don't know which cult is the origin of this one. Then the Tardaim in the east, the Inamata and Necromancers, the Britons, then. So it's around the Radiant Empire, the former Radiant Empire. And finally, the necromancers of the Trenches Mountains. So you have at the same time maps of the different regions. You have in the south a big area with 40 regions. It's more because in that place you have a mixed between a lot of different regions and a lot of smallest regions, uh, which were which were in too big number, and so I could not talk about all of them. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and back to the next episode.